Good afternoon, and this is a video response to the County Cullen discussion board about Yet Do I Marvel. Um, let's see. And actually the Harlem Renaissance in general. It was Yet Do I Marvel and also Langston Hughes. So it was County Cullen and Langston Hughes. Because one thing I want to say is that Linda's thread about the Weary Blues, one of Langston Hughes's poem, is very good, and I recommend that you go back and look at that. Linda really captures the idea of like the mood of that poem and how it ties into the Harlem Renaissance. Um, I like Melissa's thread about, and some of you commented on it as well, about County Cullen's poem, Yet Do I Marvel, the fickle fruit. Um, so there are classical allusions or references in that poem which demonstrates County Cullen's, classic education and his depth of knowledge, which I think is part of the frustration and anger that comes out at the end of the poem. I think that this poem, and I had to look some stuff up because I really like how Mary Hudgens tried really hard to sort of analyze the sonnet form, and I wanted to speak to that. But the first 12 lines of the poem, it's 14 lines altogether. The first 12 lines talk about the paradoxical nature of God. Good and kind, but if he's good and kind, then why did he create the mole is blind, and why do we have to die, and why do our best efforts end lots of times in frustration or failure or unhappiness? And his answer seems to be, that God's ways are mysterious and can't be understood by human beings. However, that final couplet, to me, that's where the turn or the volta is. And I think that's what makes this sonnet not exactly, but more like a Shakespearean or Elizabethan or English sonnet than any other form. An Elizabethan sonnet is going to have three quatrains of alternating rhyme. So A, B, A, B, 4 lines with alternating rhyme. C, D, C, D, 4 lines with alternating rhyme. And Yet Do I Marvel has that. However, Yet Do I Marvel does not have then a quatrain of alternating rhyme and a rhyming couplet. Rather, it has what's called a sestet, 6 lines that seem to go together, and there are a series of rhyming couplets. It's E, E, F, F, G, G. But one of the things I hope that you got out of your study of the sonnet is that it's a very popular form, and although there are 3 sort of prototypical types of sonnets, it is a form that people don't necessarily like stick exactly to the form. But what it does have is a couple of contrasting ideas, and the poet muses on how these ideas seem to work together somehow. And usually there is a turn or a volta. There's a place in the poem where the line of thinking seems to change direction. And I think in this poem, and this is the way I read it, and I think we could continue to discuss it, but I think at the end of the poem, that final couplet reveals the anger and frustration of this talented and sensitive and black poet, who's who's oppressed, by the white majority, who probably doesn't give him credit, even though he's clearly educated and clearly understands this classic form, the sonnet, and that kind of thing, and it makes him doubt God's goodness and kindness. So, that's the couple of ideas that are at play here. I know God's supposed to be good, and I do believe that. I do wonder, though, why there are these bad things that happen in the world. And then finally, and the answer is God's ways are mysterious, and us little peons can't, necessarily make sense of that. But at the end, but it makes me mad, that, here I am too. I'm talented, I'm educated, I'm a poet, I've got to sing, I've got to say, I've got to have this voice, but I'm black, and I'm oppressed, and people don't take me seriously, and I'm just one of these other sort of frustrating paradoxes in the universe. So I did appreciate Mary trying to sort of decipher that sonnet form. I think the volta is at the very end with that final couplet. And I do think it's more Shakespearean than anything, but it doesn't stick necessarily to either Shakespearean, Spenserian, or Italian form. And I do like Melissa's discussion of the fickle fruit. You know, there's the reference to Genesis in the Bible. That's one classical allusion or reference. And there's also reference to classical Greek literature too, with Tantalus and Sisyphus, you know, two characters. Granted, they did things that got them punished, but he sort of ignores that part and just talks about the part where Tantalus is going to be eternally thirsty, and Sisyphus has to continually push this rock up the mountain, even though he's never going to make it up, and he keeps coming back down. So that was good. And I will say that that was the best of that discussion board. Linda's thread on the Weary Blues, Melissa's thread on Yet Do I Marvel, and Mary Hudgens' analysis of the sonnet form. I think maybe you lost a little steam this week or something. I thought those poems were really rich to talk about. And maybe you ran out of time or had a lot going on. But again, I'll remind you, if you didn't get full credit, it probably has to do with A, did you respond to as many classmates as I asked you to respond to? And did you do more than say, yeah, good job? Or yeah, I didn't see it that way before, thanks. While that's nice, it doesn't really move the conversation forward. So a little bit of an elaboration. You know, I looked at the classical allusions from the Bible and kind of missed the classical allusions to Greek mythology, or you know, something of that nature, or I wasn't focusing on the structure, I was only focusing on the emotion, and then discuss that a little bit, something that someone else could jump in and say yeah or no. We want to have a discussion that goes on. So that was okay. And I really hope this week, the Poetry of Liberation discussion board, I hope that that you watch that video, and that you get some good background, and that you really take seriously the three possible threads that you can start based on that video. And there are a lot of different topics to talk about. So I'm really hoping for a rich discussion, and a lot of allusions to Hal or to the video. And have a great week.